our friends and colleagues when that's all finished up, and just welcome everyone again for joining us for the third in the series on responding to federal RFPs. We're going to be in the last part. We have both Brent Paris and Sandy Albee. Hi, Megan.
Hi there.
Megan, I'm going to mute that. We're having some technical issues with some feedback, and so I think we're going to use the chat box for communication, at least for the moment. And if we have more feedback later, I'll mute my side. Hopefully that will help. So I would like to just go ahead and once again thank Brent and Sandy from Bid Designs for joining us today. They've just been doing wonderful presentations, very, very important and exciting information for everyone. And we're so happy to be able to bring this to you virtually. We have a lot more information to share today, and we will have some time for some Q&A as well. What I'd like to do right now is turn it over to my colleague, Lisa Lagerstrom, who is also a PTAC counselor for the state of Washington, for some brief intro and go around the table to talk about who's who and what you'd like to learn from today's presentation. Lisa, you want to take that over?
You bet, Jody.
Thank you.
We thank you all for returning to day 3 of this particular event and series. Brent is going to take us through the part 3, the top best practices for winning in GovCon. And one of the things that we really want to know before we start our day is, what is a takeaway that you have, or what is an unanswered question that you have that we could address today? So I'm going to go around the room and call out the folks on here. Some of you are not able to because you're in a cubicle. So if you want to put in chat when I call your name, that would be great. Get ready for that.
Lisa.
Yes.
I just wanted to add to that. We're just really looking for everyone to kind of give us a feel for a top thing that stood out to them so far. And like you said, anything they'd like to see. Today is going to be kind of a capstone. We'll be, building on things we've talked about in the last 2 days. And it all is summarized in this title. So it'll be pretty meaty, but I want to make sure that we don't, leave anything unanswered.
Perfect. All right. Well, let's start with Justine from Evans Engineering. You're at the top of my list. Okay, Justine, if you are unable to unmute, I will look for your question or feedback in the chat after we're done with everybody else. Megan, why don't you unmute yourself and let us know what we can provide to you today and what stood out for you. Okay, we've had 2 folks that may not be able to hear me. I hope that's not the case. So let's go on to Nina. Nina, tell us a little bit about your experience and what stands out for you.
Well, actually, I just wanted to say my takeaway from this is I really liked hearing about the compliance document or the schedule. I think that's a great way to make sure that you have covered everything in the RFP. I haven't done that in the past, where I actually just kind of listed it all out myself in that kind of format, and I think it's a great idea.
That was a great document.
Good.
You're absolutely correct.
Good, I'm glad.
All right, let's see who else we have. So Nina, thank you for that. Megan, I'm going to go to you one more time. We did hear and see you earlier.
I sent Megan a little note to see if she's able to unmute. We'll see if she can.
Okay, and then Justine typed something in the chat. It says, I'm new to all of this, but I've learned so much. I can't wait to get my hands on an RFP to try and dissect myself. That's good news.
Good.
Great.
All
Good
right.
job, Justine. I like that.
I love that. Katina. Katina.
I believe Katina mentioned that she was not, she's having some technical difficulties with her sound this morning, but she's here and happy to be here.
Okay. Jennifer Sims. Okay.
Oh, I think
That's our
she's
list.
Can we hear you now, Jennifer?
Can you?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank
All
you.
right. Good morning. And I would like to start by saying thank you to everybody. This has been fantastic. I think the biggest takeaway I've gotten so far is not to try to do this all on your own.
Yes.
The team aspect of it, just having different people and different eyes to put on your proposal that you're presenting has a different perspective that is to pick up something that you might miss. And that's a great takeaway.
Yeah, I think that's important. The other thing, if you don't have a team or additional people to help you, build yourself a schedule and just make sure that there's time to do all of those things. Like you can't put the finishing touches on the technical proposal, make sure that all the numbers are right in the price and, make sure that it's formatted and review it all the night before it's due. But you can definitely space all those things out and, make sure that you have time because you implement and develop your own personal processes for responding. So definitely not impossible to do it on your own. I've been in that position in the past, but it is nice to have a team. It's not absolutely required though. It will be as you grow and you get lots of awards though over time.
Excellent. Okay, that is the list that we have of folks that are attending today. So I want to pass this over to Brent.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And I like hearing from everybody. I'm sorry that we couldn't see everybody in person. I personally love getting out to your area, so I'm very anxious to make it out there and do another one in person with you, Jody. So we look forward to those days coming back.
Good. See, Brent, can I add in one thing that came into the chat box from Laura today?
Of course, sure.
She was able to type in, I think she is in a cubicle, not able to actually upload the voice, but she says that even though I've been working with proposals for a very long time, I've never had any formal training. My main takeaway is confirmation that my processes are sound. Of course, proposal success serves as confirmation, but it's good to hear from the experts. I'll say again, I wish I'd had something like this when I was starting out. The example compliance matrix is a bit more detailed than what I typically work with. So yesterday's session was of particular interest to me. Thank you, Laura.
Well, and that's nice, but I would put Laura in the expert category as well, certainly. So I admire Laura for just coming in to hear what else, might be good tips for her. So appreciate that, Laura, but you are definitely an expert.
Excellent.
All right. Well, there's my picture again. I always like to start with that. I'm just kidding. Let's move on. I don't like my picture showing. All right. So, there's a mistake there. Line 3, there shouldn't be a 1 in there. Sorry about that. And this is kind of a capstone again for you guys that are new to this, picking up some tips as you look around, and Laura probably knows this as well. There's a lot of different schools of thought out there. You can see it when people write job descriptions for proposal people. Sometimes we'll see proposal job descriptions, and I think two things. I'm thinking, number one, if someone actually signs up to take this job, they have no idea what they're doing. They will never be able to do all this in the way that and certainly for the salary you're putting out there probably. So it's not fair to anybody sometimes. And I mention that for one reason. There's a lot of different flavors of what it takes to win. And I have clients that come to me and they want me to help. It's kind of just a offering we give them, like, would you review this job description? And I'll usually say, well, this is for a proposal writer that you want to write everything and win this many and have all these contacts with the government and do capture. It's not writing. This is a vice president position that needs 3 people working for them, So sometimes it's a company thing that you need to keep in mind. What everybody's trying to do is win, and we like to kind of provide a refocus on what it takes to win, and what those consistently winning government contractors do. And this pretty much summarizes it for me in my 25-year history of doing this. Number one is they never lose focus on how to win and how to lose, right? So a lot of people, they think we need to write it, and they write, and they review it, never reviewing it against the evaluation criteria. It's all just what we want to say, and that's not really how you win. It's not about writing and making sure it sounds the way you want to say it. It's focusing on the evaluation criteria and the compliance angles. Number 2, they build a win map, which is what I call it, to all of the Section M evaluation criteria before they write. That means they bring their solution set into the confines of that compliance matrix, into we do an adjoining matrix called a win map. And that's really important so that you have the right people. It's really an engineering job to say, okay, what are we putting in each of these outline elements that's going to be evaluated? Because very often you'll find if you just have one writer, they have no idea. They might know how to write beautifully, but finding what goes in there, whether it's a product or service, is a very different job a lot of times. So it's very helpful to have some buy-in and agreement from some key stakeholders. This is what we need to put in. So in my previous career, I would do that to my executives who just wanted it done. And I would say, wait a minute, here's what goes in it, and here's what needs to be evaluated. I have no idea what goes in these areas. And they would all stop and go, well, we need to get somebody on that. We don't know. Exactly. So why put me through 20 days of ridiculous stress trying to write it when y'all don't even know? So it's very important to kind of build that out in terms of the right people now, the right people deciding what goes in this proposal. And if you can do that from the beginning, it's going to make your job a whole lot easier, because otherwise it's just a backwards approach, trying to write and fill in pieces and look for information. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Very logical way to lay it out, which ties into number 3. Then they can write. Now, you give me a good proposal writer that has a solution, and we're done. You know what I mean? I don't even think you have to be a good proposal writer to write. We can all write. All of us have different skills and abilities. I've never been around a lot of proposal writers. I've seen some, and they do write well, but they also need a solution, and they're not often the person that develops that. Number 4, even the bigger companies skip this sometimes. They'll have these big, what they call red team reviews, and they'll just review it, and they'll start talking about editing, and we need some technical edits here, or this doesn't sound right, and half of them haven't even looked at the evaluation criteria. So it's very important, if you're going to stop the show of the proposal to review it, that everyone is reviewing it to how it's going to be evaluated. Number 5 is harder. It's harder for a lot of reasons. Optimizing resources to focus on the solution. You've got to figure out, somebody does within the organization, honestly, how much money we have to hire the people we need. Are we going to do some surge support? And even when you do that, there's risks with that. There's continuity. There's sometimes learning as you go that it's not the right solution, but you've already signed up for it. Company owners, executives, they all have different, all companies are different in terms of the approach and in terms of what they can spend or what they should spend. So we're not going to try to handle that today, because that would be there's no one answer. But what we are going to do is show you a good model in the big picture of how government contractors can best optimize resources. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Just kind of a reminder here. We did this the first day. Focus on the win with Section M or the evaluation criteria, building your solution only to the evaluation criteria right after you build your solution, and review against it. Make sure you always follow the instructions in the RFP to the letter. We talked a lot about that yesterday in compliance. That's a big job. The only thing you're doing there is to make sure you don't lose on compliance. And again, the key phrase of this session is you will not win because you're compliant. You will lose if you're not compliant. You will win because you have better evaluation scores. Next, please. This is kind of a sample of what we talk about a win map. So you take Sandy's wonderful bid design compliance matrix presented yesterday. Then you just take it where we had the section L&M and the outline, and then we add some key things that goes into most proposals that we've talked about earlier. So for each element of the proposal, you would want to add some columns. You can change these. This is specifically true for writing. It might be a product and you would just change that a little bit. But number one, talk about that, fill in what you know the customer is looking for. That's really important to get everybody on the same page. It's going to go into your writing. How you're going to approach it, what you're offering. That box is often hard to fill in once you start this kind of win map. Well, what is going to go in here? So we need a great project manager. Well, who is that going to be? Do they really fit everything that we need? Those kinds of things. Then we want to talk about how we're going to apply features and benefits to sell it. That takes some work to really think through. We want to substantiate any claims we've made in our features and benefits particularly, or our approach. Providing some statistics or other proof that we've done this before or that we have the right answer. And any discriminators and strengths in this particular area that may stand out. So if you can imagine, if we do this across all of the L&M or instructions and evaluation criteria of our whole proposal, this is a job to do, but it's the same job that a writer needs to do. And without this, the writer has nothing to write to. This is something that is very useful. Many of our clients use this. We'll provide the template, they fill it in, but it gets everybody on the right page. And sometimes it's a team of people filling this in, and they really study it in an engineered approach, figuring out how we're going to tackle this and what's going to go in our proposal using these boxes or modified boxes as you wish, to really lay out what's going to go in every single element of this proposal before we write a word. Very often what will happen is you'll have some tasks that come from that. Oh, I need this from this person. Oh, I'm going to need this from this person. Perfect. Now's the time to do that. Go get it. Ask them to join in. I've got this problem. Then I would actually put that to some kind of review. I would bring my key stakeholders and executives in and say, this is what we're doing. Does anyone have anything else to add? Does everybody agree? Does it sound sound? This is how we think we're going to win it. Yeah, looks good. Make some changes. Here we go. Okay, let's write this thing. Let's put this into some writing. Let's put it together. Then when we review it, let's review against this to make sure everything got in there, and to make sure that we're really on the right track. This kind of replaces Laura. I'm sure you know, and you're free to chat here, either unmute or type in. A lot of people have probably heard of the term storyboards. I grew up in storyboards, and I dismissed storyboards early in my career because they were absolutely useless. Great theory, but it was the same kind of outline for everybody, and they didn't really join together. They didn't match up against evaluation criteria, and it was the idea of sketching out what's going to go into it. I agree with the idea, but I don't like the traditional storyboard. This really replaces that to get right into it against the outline, the evaluation criteria all together. You can see how the pieces fit next to each other, and you're not just assigning this to different people to try to do their own storyboard, which is separate from anybody else's writing. Doesn't make a lot of sense.
I just wanted to add a couple of things, just as you're talking through that. Yesterday we talked about the process of how to effectively respond to proposals. And of course, we've all learned it doesn't just start with jumping in and writing. And to some of you on the line that are newer to proposal development and the proposal processing, I want you to think of this as the next step after you have built your compliance matrix. You'll see that we've started over there on the left side of your screen, the section L requirement, the section M requirement. Those are the basis for which the responses have to come from. This is taking it a step further through your compliance matrix or through your thought process, if you're not actually going to create a compliance matrix of where are we going to work on that solutioning and what Brent was talking about. So all those other header sections, the understanding, approach, features, benefits, proofs, and discriminators, all of that will come once you've analyzed that RFP, broken it down from L&M. So this isn't a separate, completely separate activity independent of the things that we talked about yesterday. This is all part of the process. So just wanted to kind of talk about where it falls in, and it normally falls in after your compliance matrix is built.
Exactly. All right. Next slide, please. Talk a little bit. We've talked a lot in the session about understanding, so I want to share something with you that I learned. My very first proposal, love it. It's can't be overused enough for me. But and we saw some evaluation criteria and samples we used. The government a lot of time likes to see that you understand what's going on, and we talk a lot about understanding. So it's a very common requirement. Stating you understand doesn't help. You want to show in-depth expertise, that you understand the nature of the work, that you understand what the customer really needs. So to me, understanding can kind of go in two different ways. I understand you need the lawn mowed. I understand how often. I understand your quality. That's okay. But what you can really do is flip it upside down and go, in order to be successful, what you need here is this, 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 and this. So if you know what I'm saying, if you can present something in an understanding mode where you're the expert and you're actually training the evaluator on what they should be looking for, you're going to set the bar of the competition right away. I mean, when they read your proposal and they're like, wow, this company gave me information. They told me what I need to be successful at. They really know this. They really understand this. This other company simply said, we understand it. I mean, which one do you think is going to get the better nod, right? So when you can just flush your expertise out there and use that as your main point to show that you are the expert by telling them, this is what it takes to be successful. That is demonstrating understanding, not saying we understand, we understand, we understand. So when we talk about understanding, when the government talks about understanding, they want to know that you know this work. And the best way to do that is take an academic standpoint from that and really actually provide them information that's valuable. If you're proposing on something, you know the work, you should be the expert in your field, and you need to share that there. Advise them, tell them this is what you should really be looking at. You don't want to go so far to say, you need to be looking at all the other proposals like this, but if you do it right, they'll be doing that. So you're really setting the bar for the competition in your favor if you'll take some time to provide some of your expertise. And so think about it. We're talking to a company right now, a couple of companies, about rebuilding our website, which if you've looked at it, it's pretty, well, it's like a lot of companies, we've got to update it. It's been a while. And one of them is just telling us, this is what we do, this is what we do, this is what we do. And then I've got another company saying, the trends of today are this. The best way to present this is this. The best way to do what you're wanting to do is this. And I look at them and go, my goodness, they know what they're doing. Now on paper, the first company seems to be more experienced, right, and bigger, but they're just taking the easy approach. Yeah, this is what we'll do. Here's the cost. The other company's taking it further, going, here's our expertise in motion. We're actually helping you as we're proposing on it. So it's something to keep in mind. Another way to look at understanding is really good. I got this example early on. If the requirement in the RFP is to provide locks, think about it. What they really need is security. It's a very simple example, but I feel it's pretty powerful. So I have two choices. If I'm providing locks, I could give them a list of all the locks I have. Okay. Or I could tell them what's so important about security, and here's all the different type of security solutions we provide and why. Probably going to resound a lot more. So always keep that example in mind, locks and security. I love it. Kind of helps you get from meeting the requirement to meeting the need. There's always a need behind every requirement in any type of RFP, okay? You've always got the technical people in the government saying, we need this, we need this, we need this. And then you have the contracting people turning that into an acquisition document, requirement. Those two things takes a minute to pull together. So if you see a requirement, you always want to think there's a need behind this, and I need to address that need. I don't need to just say at the top level, here's what we're going to do for you. Very important in proposals. Understanding. Next slide. All right, I need someone that can talk to be our class representative. So whoever that might be, unmute yourself and let's take a moment to read the two options and let that person tell us which one they think is best and why. If you'll all take a moment to read option 1 and 2. Someone raise their hand that wants to speak.
I'll read it, Brent.
Well, I want to see if anyone, I don't know if we can hear anybody. Can we not, Jody or Lisa?
I don't have anybody in chat yet answering the question.
Yeah, I've typed in your answers, suggestions, questions here, or if you can unmute, feel free to do so and speak up.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from someone. Maybe Nina, I know spoke earlier, or Laura, if she could type in. Or anyone.
All right, I know Jennifer, you were able to unmute earlier. Do you have a comment to add? Which of these?
And all we're looking for is someone to let us know which one sounds better. So Sandy, you can go ahead and give the thought on that.
Yeah, Nina is unmuted. Nina, what do you think?
Well, I would definitely look at option 2. If you have good established procedures, say, safety and your quality, and you do good, on-site or whatever it is, follow up with your employees. Is that where you're going with this question?
Yeah, we're just exactly right. We're just comparing the two different types of ways someone might write to understanding. Right. So on the left side, showing it's just very basic.
Showing that you have educated, experienced people working on the scheduling, things like that. If you could show that in your proposal, it's not just saying it's actually showing that you've had processes instilled for a while.
Excellent, Nina. You get the prize of the hour. Very good. All right. Thank you for that. So use this when you get the samples to go back and look at, yes, Laura, you're right. And that's a good point. I didn't mention that earlier. Laura says, I'm assuming option 1 is basically restating the PBS requirements. This is a problem I run into frequently with people providing their technical input. There's a reason for that. Their first inclination is to simply restate the requirement and say, yes, we'll do that. And I'm sure Sandy talked about yesterday. That is not compliance, nor is that writing a solution. So taking a PWS requirement and saying, we will do this, that's not writing and that's not a solution. And we focus on that a lot through our careers. I know probably not so much in this training as we should, but that is a problem, and it's called parroting the PWS. I've actually, through my career, heard people say, what you need to do is take every shall requirement and turn it into a will requirement. And That's not really what you do in proposal writing. That's not what the government's looking for, nor does their evaluation lead you to that. So yeah, that's right. The one on the left is pretty much just parroting back the requirements, and that's not a proposal. So if you see that or try to do that, not really doing a proposal, not really going to win. Okay, next slide. Very good. Thanks, Laura. Let me move my chat box. I can't see. If you're doing a technical, anything that's a written narrative, so there's all different types of proposals you may do. Some of them may be a product or something like that. But anytime you do anything that's a narrative that needs to be written, whatever that may be, usually in technical or a management area, you always want to answer to how you're going to do the work. I always think hows include steps and phases and procedures, following guidance and things like that. You don't want to just say, we'll do this. You really need to give an idea of how, but you also need to tie that to what they're asking for in the evaluation criteria in the particular section that you're writing. A lot of times you'll see something that says, give us your approach to performing PWS section 5.0. Okay, we need to look at PWS section 5.0, see what they're requiring, and then we need to come up with a plan for that. How are we going to do that? That may be how we manage it, how we technically perform, how we check quality, whatever that may be. They're really looking for an approach there. So again, that kind of gets rid of the notion that you just need to regurgitate the requirement to them. That's not proposal writing at all. Next, please. You've heard this probably if you've ever been around proposals very much, you'll always hear it. But really, it's about the customer, competitors, and company. I actually grew up with the 3 C's. I think it's actually, I don't usually discuss Shipley. They kind of have the hallmark of the industry, but I do need to give a nod here. We probably definitely lifted that there. I consider that an industry thing. It is about the customer, it is about the competitors, and it is about the company. For the customer, do you answer what they're looking for? Right? The customer. It's all about them. Are you relating to them? Are you showing the needs? And something we haven't talked about a lot, but are you ghosting your competitors? And that gets into a whole other area of a lot of people spend a lot of time and money doing things called black hat reviews, trying to figure out what their competitors are going to do. And I've been a part of that a lot. I came from a big company called BAE Systems, and that was pretty big there. Pretty useless most of the time, in my opinion, and I stated so. But the truth is, you're not going to figure out exactly what a competitor is going to put in their proposal, nor should you do anything to try to, other than just general assessments. But you need to have a good idea always, I think, is important, of who your competitors are. And you need to try to profile them, generally speaking. And if you're going after a proposal and you don't really know who you're competing against, that may be just your first, observation is like, I don't really know. So now I need to come up with a class of competitors. What type of competitors might I be going against? Am I going to go against companies like myself, like my company, or am I going to go against some bigger established ones here? And then I need to kind of think about that and come up with some kind of strategies there. So if I'm the smallest kid on the block and I'm going to go up against some pretty bigger established ones, I got to try harder, right? I definitely do. I got to bring something. I got to remove risk that I'm too small and too new. I got to really work that to ghost my competitors, if you will. I really need to find a way to break into that. Now, we're getting into some other areas. You certainly don't need to go if you're a one-person company against a 5,000-person company. There's no way, that you could really expect to do that. You got to stay in your lane, which fortunately acquisitions help us do by their set-aside status and all those things. But always focus on your strengths and weaknesses. If you've got weaknesses that may be realized, you need to somehow mitigate those. So if you are only 5 years old and 5 people, that probably is going to be a perceived weakness. So how can you turn that around? Possibly it's the expertise, it's some of the past performance, where you could easily turn that story around as, wow, these guys have really done a lot of impressive work in 5 years, and they've got some pretty incredible results from customer letters and appreciation and all this kind of thing. Certifications they've got, So there's a lot of things you can do. And the smaller you are, the harder you're going to work to pull those statistics, proof points, results together. You should always do it, but especially smaller, newer, really going to have to work hard to do that. And Jody, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if that's a PTAC area that you guys help in. I would think maybe so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. They do want to take a look at where, what makes them stand out in particular. When I'm working with people on capability statements and getting ready to market their company, I always ask them to step back almost outside their own shoes and take a look at what they have to offer and what makes them different as compared to their competitors, whether they're the same size or a larger company, because that's how they want to present themselves as an asset to the potential partner.
That's right. And that's a good point. Do not throw away your wonderful capability statement that PTAC has helped you with when you're doing a proposal. You go back to it and you grab those strengths and make sure those show up in your proposal as well. Because guess what? The capability statement is a marketing document, so is your proposal. Whether you win or lose, you're still marketing your company.
Mm-hmm.
And you may win, but it's a proposal. It is a marketing document. It needs to be perfect. It needs to read well. It needs to have no errors. It needs to be presented well. It needs to be full of your strengths. And a great solution. It is nothing but a marketing document.
Mm-hmm. Well, Lisa and I both agree that it's very good to have at least one, if not two other sets of eyes to review, because we all know when you're writing something, your brain knows already what you're going to say or put down. Someone outside of you or your entity can take a look and maybe find those little glitches, whether it's an extra space, a page number that's incorrect, grammatical errors, anything that needs to be edited, because you do not want to make a mistake. Because let's be honest, if you make mistakes on something as simple as your capability statement, there's the assumption that you may make mistakes on site on a federal government contract, and that is an increase in risk in the eyes of the partner you're hoping to work with. So you have to take it very seriously from moment one. And I think, Lisa, you may want to chime in, because she and I have talked about that a number of times.
You're absolutely correct. The first impression is very important, and having another set of eyes is essential. And capability statements, some people minimize it, and it is hard to draw the best parts out of some people. When you're coaching, a lot of people aren't feeling natural about bragging about themselves. So it is a service that PTAC does. I have 3 on my desk right now, capability statements. I do believe if that's the first thing you do with your PTAC counselor, you're off to a great start.
I agree.
It's essential to have a few and understand the power of. And it's not the only thing that you do, but it's a start.
It's a good piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
All right. It's great stuff. And I want to encourage everyone, a shameless plug for proposal experts everywhere. Those of you that are new to this and haven't done it before, it's a great career. If you have any interest at all, it is wonderful to help build a company. That's what you're doing, and get really good at this. These skills will last forever. You can transfer them to anything else you do in the future. It's really a great career path. I've loved it. I've done it for many, many years. It is rewarding. And when you get really good at it, I think it's a lot of fun. And it takes a minute to get good at it. I think it's like anything. If I don't really know what it is and I'm trying to do it, I don't enjoy it so much, right? So learning, working with your PTAC folks, and repetitiveness, doing it over and over, we only get motivated through repetition. Like, think about it. When I started running 5 years ago, I would run once. I wasn't that motivated to run again. I kind of wanted not to. I did it again the next week. The more I did it, the more I was motivated to do better and really learn how it works and how to have the right shoes and how to stretch and how not to get injured. And repetition really built my interest in doing it better. I think it's a good lesson in life. You try something once, you hate it. I mean, that's not fair. Spend especially true of proposals. You might do 1, 2, or 3 and go, get me out of here. I'm going to give you the other side of that. Stick with it. Learn some of this. Keep your presentation. And I'll guarantee you in a year, if you've done several of these, you'll go back to this presentation and go, ah, I see that. Okay. Next one. Which is better? Well, I'll help you on this one because I like to kind of talk through this one myself. The one on the left, they're providing the lawn services because I think that's easy for everybody to get their arms around. We will mow your grass weekly. We'll use a backup company. If any of our people are out sick or otherwise unavailable, we'll lease machines locally. If there isn't machinery available, we'll have a backup plan. If there's rain, we'll reschedule. Now, again, like Laura said, they probably read the requirements and just said, okay. Yeah, we'll back it up. Okay, if there's rain, we'll reschedule it. Well, I don't know about you, but the one on the left, it actually starts me having a lot more questions than I had before I read it, right? You'll use a backup company? What backup company? I'm hiring you. What do you mean otherwise unavailable? How often are your people not available? We'll lease machines locally. Well, where are you? Locally where? What do you mean if it's not available? Is it often not available? What kind of backup plans will you have? So you've got people that might not be there and you might not have equipment. Okay. If there's rain, we'll reschedule. Well, when? All right. So you're reading that and you're going, I'm done. I'm just done with you. I don't have anything here that makes me feel better, and I have more concerns about you than ever. On the right side.
This is not a facetious example. I was doing a compliance.
No, it's not. You're right.
I was doing a compliance review 2 days ago from a customer that told me on the phone when we first spoke about this particular RFP that they were so proud that they have put together an all small business team for a full and open procurement that is local to the area in which the contract was going to be performed. And then she didn't say any of that in the introduction to her proposal. And I was like, where is this information? She was so excited about that. It was one of her win themes and it was nowhere in her technical section. And it was, just having that extra set of eyes say, hey, you told me about that, but it's not reflected here. It's just really important to kind of get that all down on paper so that you can make sure that what's important actually makes it into your proposal.
That's right. And if they'd had a win map here or the one you talked about, they would have had that go by. And the same thing that I think Jody just mentioned, what happened on the left-hand side here and with that one you're talking about, Sandy, is it was just a brain freeze, right? No doubt the company on the left does much better than they've presented, but they're like, oh, it's a proposal. I got to write to the requirement. I got to do this. And they left everything out, right? Just because of that brain freeze, ignoring the things you've got to tell them because it's all in your mind. Whereas on the right side, they took the time to do it right. They give out the approach. We have an on-site supervisor. We'll go each Tuesday. Here's our procedures. Again, the company on the left very likely had this. We keep in continuous contact in the event of rain. The reset scheduled date is set the same day it's interrupted. Again, very well could have been the approach on the left. It just did not come out that way. So it's the difference and I want you to save this in your package when you start doing your writing and reviewing. Don't do it in option 1, do it in option 2, and really study the differences here of how they laid out the approach versus just saying, sure, checkbox, we'll do it. Nobody's going to award you anything by just saying, we'll do everything you told us to do. In any industry, anytime, anywhere. I mean, it's not just proposals. You can't just, and we used to say a long time ago, okay, well, this is the trust me approach. Leave me alone and trust me. Hand me some money, right? Like, I'll do it. I do it all the time. Pay me. All right, next slide, please. This is just another example you can have in your slide deck. We won't go over this one. Oh, I did want to pick up, see that second line on the left with our unparalleled experience. You stay away from that kind of stuff. We have the best tools and methods in the industry. Says you, prove it, right? On the right side, when you review this, you'll see some statistics. I always think adding numbers and qualifiers in is really good. They've got 21 years of call experience. We've implemented more than 10 industry technology improvements in the last 5 years. We've won this award. Again, very well could have been the same company, all right? These could be the same company, just written two totally different ways. But anytime if you can add "so what" to the end of something you're writing, then you need to change it. Next. This is I think you probably talked about it some yesterday, Sandy. This is just a general outline we always recommend for writing narratives. Start with your main factor or sub-factor that you're writing to. I always put in my writing, have for years, what my understanding is, what the issues and the needs are, what my approach is, and how I'm going to sell it by showing the clear features and benefits. It's a very good way. I learned it early on. Someone pulled me aside and said, Brent, everything you write, do understanding and approach, understanding and approach, understanding and approach. Sum it up with features and benefits to sell it. And it works. It is a great model to use. Insert it wherever you can. In narrative. Use these call-out boxes, as they call them. Great to do. Put your statistics, your proofs, your discriminators, your strengths, anything like that evaluator could really look at in a big checkbox format and go, wow, 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 wow. You really want to be able to lay those key things out. So it's an art, as you can see, but it's a fun art. Next, please.
Yeah, and we didn't really talk about that too much in detail yesterday. We really talked about the layout of the compliance matrix,
Right.
and building outline templates and things like that. So this, again, is also something that goes into building and layering the process as you become more comfortable with creating and implementing and following the proposal process. So you build your compliance matrix, you build your win map, and from there, that allows you to very easily write the proposal response. It's just like Brent said, people can be good writers. The people that really understand the technical solutioning are the ones that are going to have to provide this information. They don't often think of themselves as writers per se, but when you use this process, dare I say it, the proposal ends up writing itself, and it writes itself in a very clear and compelling way.
Now, of course it does. If you've got an outline and a win map with your solution filled in, you can hand that to anybody that can write. And that's exactly what you mean by writing itself, for sure. 100%. Because this is a proposal class and people like to talk about writing, we do save it for the last, because to us, this all comes at the end of doing all the compliance and setting it up and getting your win. But everyone likes to talk about writing styles, so we like to cover that. Just red and green here, just the difference in proposer focus versus customer focus. And number one, if every sentence starts with we, you're focused on you. For customer focused, you talk about the customer first. You show your understanding followed by approach. If you've got a whole proposal written where it never benefits the customer, it's not very good. You want to write it from a marketing perspective. There's not a marketing document you could go to that doesn't show you how you're going to benefit from that service. It needs to be the same thing with a proposal. Got to make the evaluator feel like this is worth it to us. We've talked a lot about unsubstantiated claims. You don't want to say we are the best. You want to back up any claim you make, or don't make the claim. Well, you could claim you've been in business 21 years, but that is kind of a claim and a proof in the same breath. But saying we are the best, no one can beat us, things like that. Or we've got tons and tons and tons of experience. We see that too. We've just got in-depth experience. Okay, well, what is in-depth, right? Give some examples of that. Keep a conservative document. You're all writing to the government. I haven't seen it a lot, but we have seen some pretty outlandish documents in our past that we really had to just stop and help steer that back. Big purple words, 18 font in the middle of the page with exclamation points, and those kinds of things just don't belong in a government proposal. Needs to be pretty clean. Nothing exaggerated, and certainly don't try to get too cute with it. Make it professional is the key word there. Next slide, please. And if you ever heard this, and again, this is kind of at the end of everything, once you've done your solutioning and writing, we get this a lot, is, can you guys help us? It just sounds like 9 people wrote it. Well, it's because 9 people did write it. And they all have a different writing style and a different tone of voice. Does not make for a very cohesive read. So at the end, once you're sure all of the things are in place and all your evaluation criteria is met and you're compliant, I think it's very worthwhile to take a technical edit of the whole document, make it sound really good and polished. I don't recommend doing that very much before, because a lot of that stuff's going to change. But I think cleanup action in the end is very helpful. Quality check, technical edit is very necessary to present a very polished, well-received document. These are just some editing tips, and I'm sure you guys can follow that okay. I do suffer from random capitalization syndrome myself, but depending on your own personal affliction, you can read what here is, and there's plenty of self-help guides out there to help you. Acronyms and government cons. Yes, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and when it comes to editing, don't be afraid. There's some commercially available editing tools that you can implement into your processes that will help you pull acronyms, first use of acronyms, things like that. Your competitors are using them. There's definitely nothing wrong with implementing those if you don't feel like the best editor or the document is too overwhelming for you to pull those. And do editing as you go along. Make that part of that review process, so that way you're not doing it all at once at the very end. The biggest takeaway I want everyone to take away from these 3 days of training is to understand that there are processes, and when you implement those, you can truly make time to do all of the things to make sure that you have a compliant and compelling and quality document to turn in as your proposal, something that you can be really proud of every time.
Yep. But, as I said earlier, don't spend too much time editing in the beginning if you don't have your solution fleshed out. In fact, I don't recommend it in that case. As long as you have a progressive build of a solution, I think, editing as you go is fine. But if you don't, focus your time on the solution first, and then you can easily, but don't skip the cleanup.
Yeah, definitely.
Remember, no matter what you think, you're not writing for your boss. You're not writing for the PTAC. You're not writing for bid design. You're not writing for anybody but the evaluator. And you've got to remember the evaluator that's getting your proposal has seen a lot of other proposals. The evaluator you're getting is just a person with his or her own background, experience, frustrations, time constraints. I was trained early on, consider your evaluator to be the laziest person you've ever met, and make their job 100% easy to find what they need to score you and give you the highest scores. If they have to hunt, read through narrative to find what they even need to score, it's going to make it harder. Keep your compliance matrix handy. Your evaluation criteria is what the evaluator, every evaluator will have, is that evaluation criteria in the form of a checklist. Make sure they can find everything in that evaluation criteria easily. And you have different readers, keep that in mind. And this gets more into a style decision. You have people that love to read narrative. You have people that can read a few words and get it and move on. You have some people that like the visuals. Honestly, I'm more of a skimmer and a visual person. You give me 18 pages of narrative with no break, I'm probably not going to be able to finish it. Not easily. Takes me a while. That's not how everybody is, but you got different types of people that read different types of ways.
That's right.
So you got to keep that in mind.
Yeah, if you give me the exact same document, I love words, pictures, and graphics. unless they're extremely well labeled and have a direct connection to what's in the text, I'm going to skim over your graphics and I am going to really focus on the words and look for a connection. So
that's right. That's right. Sandy will do that. And I would not do that. I would look at your graphic and be puzzled as to why this graphic doesn't provide me everything I need to know.
Right, right. So the best thing, I mean, ultimately what you really want to do is know who your customer is and get to know, who's going to be, evaluating this and how do they like to write. And again, that comes over time as you're doing your market research and as you're getting to know your customer and just listening to them as they give you feedback when you turn in a proposal. But, until you get to that point, you have to make the assumption that you're going to have different types of readers reading your document. And so you need to make sure that you write to as broad of an audience as possible.
Yep.
If I can add something real quick, because all these are just exceptional, guidance points, highlights. I was speaking with a pretty high level reviewer with the federal government. She was talking about things that they see or don't see. And another thing, I think when you're writing your proposal is don't use terms that kind of say, well, I get it and we're really good at this, or we consider safety. Sometimes those, according to the person that was talking with me, they said you're already expected to know those things. You're expected to be safe. You're expected to understand this. So you actually can end up wasting some space. The key thing is why and how. If you understand and you can meet those requirements, why are you going to and how? Let them understand that you have a clear understanding without wasting time with comments that she said may actually have the proposal just set aside.
All right. That's exactly right. And those evaluators, man, every time I see one, I talk to them, figure out what they've, a lot of things here. It's just from talking to evaluators over the years. And I've been on that side a little bit too. But most evaluators will tell you if I see them at a lunch or something, okay, what would you have me tell my students and my clients? And most of them will say, tell them to get a compliance matrix and give me exactly what we're asking for. Don't give me 20 pages of narrative up front. I'm not going to read it. All right, next. This is just another summary, make the evaluator's job easy. And we've talked about most of these, so these are good reference for you to go back to later. Next, please. Win tip number 4, they perform Section M-based reviews. Sorry, I got lost there. It continues at the top. They perform Section M-based reviews and have constructive reviews. So remember that if you're going to stop your proposal and review it, a lot of people say, well, we got to do a red team review or a gold team review. Make sure you funnel that and focus on what you should be reviewing, and that is the evaluation scoring and that you're compliant. You can even do your own mock scoring. But if you get a lot of people in the room and say, please read this proposal, and all they're doing is editing it, then you really haven't had a review. You might have had a polish look, like Jody was mentioning, have someone else look over it to make sure. But in terms of meaty, winning the proposal, you've got to have some people look at the evaluation criteria with you and go, okay, show me where you've met this. So those are 2 different kind of reviews. Keep that in mind. This type that we're talking about here gets skipped way too often in favor of a pretty review, an editing review. That's least important. If you only had time for one of them, I'd go with this one. You definitely want to do the other one, but after you get this right, because you're not going to win if you don't have the right content. Next, please. And this just gives you a guide for reviews. You can have it in your reference materials. You can refer to this when you're doing reviews. You want to, make sure you're doing all these things on the last. Compliance. What have you got in terms of your solution? You've written it well. You've proven it. Risk, we don't talk a lot about, but risks are important. The government wants to award to the lowest risk always. And so you've got to kind of really always consider risk. Is anything I'm saying going to sound risky? Have I reduced their risk? Have I increased their confidence? Next, please. And the final one, this is really kind of the bid designs model. We show this because a lot of people, this is very interesting to look at. A lot of times when you do a proposal, all these things on the outside of the box, people focus on, and it's a lot. It is doing the compliance matrix, processing amendments, doing the outlines, doing the production, doing a schedule, doing the reviews, all those things around the box, branding it, formatting, editing. I call all that the infrastructure of the proposal. So if you spend 99% of your time on that and 1% on the inside of the box, you're probably not going to win. So I like for my clients to focus most of their time on the inside of the box, the strategy, the capture, the writing, the SME experts, the pricing, bringing that solution together. And we support our clients on the outside of the box. Now, in your own companies, you can look at it in different ways and figure out who's doing what. But the overall message here is to really look at your proposals in a new way and figure where everybody's spending most of their time. Is it just trying to figure it out and how to get it done and formatting and editing and all that? Or is it focused on the solution to section in evaluation criteria and building it outward that way? Most companies spend more time on the outside of the box than they should. And that's why they don't win as much. And that's why they get frustrated. And that's why they try to hire writers and all this. So it's really dissecting what needs to go into a proposal and making sure that you've resourced it correctly, starting with that you've got the right people on the right job on the inside of the box, and then you go outward. So it's just a flipping it upside down from what a lot of people do. So that's just something to keep in mind. That's pretty much the last slide that we have, Jody. Yeah, this was just
review this.
So we're going to end it on that.
Okay.
No, we're going to end it on the other one. Yeah, this is just some backup stuff.
Great. So does anyone have any questions or need clarification on something specific that we covered? If you can unmute and just speak up and let us know, or type your information into the chat box. I hadn't seen any additional questions come in yet during the presentation. We'll open that up now and see who'd like to get some further clarification or additions.
Jody, this is Lisa, and I wanted to just say how important this day today, what Brent was going over, is for wrapping it up, the tips and techniques. Two things that popped for me were, if you can read something and you can't answer how so, how are you going to do that? You've missed the point. And the so what, you read something, you go, so what? How important is that? Why make that important to me? What is your solution to our problem?
Mm-hmm.
Those two I use in capability statements because so many people want to use fluffy words. They're not specific. And I just, the how so and the so what.
Mm-hmm.
They're really simple phrases, but it seems to help people get in perspective how to write.
I appreciate that. And I also think, again, to put themselves in the shoes of the entity that they are marketing to, and ask themselves why they are wanting this done, what their need is, how you can meet that need, and why your ability to meet it is better than your competitors. It simply doesn't work to say we're the best, so hire us. You have to back that up with facts, proof, experience, just like you do a resume when you're going for an individual job. It doesn't work to say, I'm actually the best one here, so you don't need to call anybody else. That won't work at all, especially with the government.
You got it, Jody.
Mm-hmm.
I like that analogy too. Think of it as a resume. I mean, you're going to build that resume up to sound good. Same thing on your proposal. It is a resume in a lot of ways.
Well, and no one I know writes one resume for any particular job they're going for. It's always independent and individual to meet the needs of that prospective partner. And you want to market and put that information in words that will get their attention and keep their attention and leave them wanting more. So they will call you and ask for additional information and how they can, find you to be an asset to their company so that you don't get set aside, you get set right up front.
That's right. I like that too. That's good. Don't get set aside, you get set right up front.
Mm-hmm. That's where you want to
Right.
be.
I like it.
Laura or Megan, anyone out there that I know you've got experience in this for a number of years. Would you like to share anything either by unmuting or typing something in the chat box for us? I haven't seen anything pop up. Lisa, have you seen anything that I've missed in our chat? I don't think we have yet.
I have not.
Okay. Sandy, what else would you like to add in for us today?
I just want to thank everyone for listening in, and I hope this gave everyone a lot to think about just in terms of processing and planning for proposal responses. I know that it's a lot. The intention is to provide a roadmap for allowing you to implement these processes into your proposal response timelines. And just know that if you ever have any questions, we'd be happy to chat. Just talk through any questions or adding in procedures or, specifics on how we actually complete compliance reviews and build matrices and things like that. So feel free to reach out. You can contact me directly on LinkedIn, and we'll also add Ashley Coronado. She's our compliance director based right there in the Tri-Cities. And she would be happy to chat as well. And so we'll get that contact information out to everybody.
Fantastic. Thank you. I see Laura did write a comment in for us. Thank you, Laura. Said that she didn't really have anything else to add. She appreciated the pointers today for the writing process. And she thinks that maybe one of the weak areas she had where we get so focused on compliance and don't spend the time actually writing very good content. So she feels it was very beneficial, which we appreciate you sharing, Laura. And Justine says, thank you. She appreciated the presentation as well. So I think, unless Brent or Sandy have anything else to add, we will be following up with each of you that participated. I will be in close contact with Sandy, Brent, and Ashley. They will be following up with us at PTAC with kind of a finalized version of their slide deck that we are permitted to share with you. And just to reiterate, Sandy and Brent, if one of our PTAC clients we're working with would like to speak further, I know today was it was really a gift for you to come and do this presentation for us. You've got a business, very successful, thriving business, and that's not always a pro bono. This is very unique, and we appreciate it greatly to share this with our clients. But if one of our clients contacts us and says, "Boy, I need a little more clarification. I've got something I'm working on," can we connect you by email? So maybe you can just chat real quick to be sure that they stay on track.
Of course.
Yes, absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you. Well, with that, I think, Lisa, unless there's anything else you want to add?
Great presentation. I thank you both for providing this information to PTAC clients.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you all. We look forward to seeing you in person soon.
We look forward to doing this in person in a nice big room where we can all shake hands. And
I know.
with that, we'll finish up. We'll wish all of you a wonderful remainder of your week. Stay safe, stay healthy out there, and keep that tenacity. Learn from this, put it to work, and we want to hear some good success stories come from our clients out there that benefit from this proposal webinar that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, everyone.
Right.
We look forward to seeing you when we
Thanks.
get the chance to do so.
Thank
Have
you.
a wonderful day. Thank you. Thank you, Brent. Lisa, you are a lifesaver, my girlfriend.
I didn't realize I was muted. I was talking that whole time.
Oh.
Okay, let's stop the recording.
I'm gonna get that. I think we're good.